What up, guys? Welcome back to Get Close. And today we have Stan Efferding back again. I'm your host, Bart.
I'm Gio. I was clapping for Stan. I was like, yeah, he's back.
And on the second appearance, what we like to do is to get questions from fans so that they can really get to know you, because we got close with you on the first episode. So now it's the fans' chance to
Yes, if these questions suck, it's not on us.
Let's do it. I'm an open book.
All right. So the first one is, what's the day in the life of Stan Efferding like?
Boy, I tell you, these days it's a bit of a popcorn machine because I've got two kids, 7 and 9. So I'm up early. I try and get some of my work done in the morning. I'm writing a book right now, Vertical Kids. And
I can't
so
wait for that.
The only time you can get that done and actually have any brain power left is in the morning before that gets robbed by all of the duties of the day.
Yeah.
So I'll get up early and I'll write.
What's
I'll try and write for an
Yeah.
hour a day,
Like
6
4?
a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, and try and write for an hour on that book, and then the kids are usually, I get them up around 7:30. We'll get them ready for school, and that's running around. This morning in particular, my daughter says, "I need crayons. I can't go to school without crayons." I'm like, "Wouldn't yesterday have been a better time to mention this?"
Yeah, yesterday
So
was a Sunday. It would have been awesome.
Yeah, so I'm racing over to CVS down
Oh
the
my
street to
God.
get crayons this morning. I put the prep meals in the microwave and hit the button, and then I run over to CVS to try and get the crayons before the meals are done, and get her ready. And then like 10 years ago or more, I had a tooth cracked. I got a soccer ball hit my face, and so the tooth died. And my dentist took the tooth out and put a cap in there. And this morning, as I'm eating my breakfast, it was like some sourdough toast, and it was a little tough. The tooth pops off.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
my
And I'm supposed to be in here to do a video with you today and,
Yeah.
and look like the Wicked Witch of the West. So I had to run over and
Of
get some
all
super
days.
glue and glue my tooth back on.
Oh, my God.
And then yesterday was 20 rep sets on squats, and so I had my eye bled
Yeah.
from 20 rep sets on
You could have
squats.
just came in here and said you got in a fight and you beat up the dude.
Yeah, no kidding. I said something bad to my wife, and she clocked me.
That was good too.
So, but then usually between the time the kids are in school from 9 to 3, that's opportunity for me to work on the businesses. That's obviously my ebook. We just released the Vertical Diet book. This one here, just down Barnes and
Awesome.
Noble, and
Yes.
it's on Amazon. And so we do a lot, corresponding with people. I have clients, of course, that I work with, and we also own a meal prep company in partnership. And we deliver nationwide, and so we do a lot of marketing for that. And so, like you folks will get on social media and try and do our marketing for the day. And
You try to fit in all the business work between the hours.
between 9 and 3,
9 and
because
3.
when the kids come home at 3, you can't get anything done.
Yep.
Nothing.
Oh man, I tell you, when the schools were shut down and they were doing the homeschooling on
Yeah.
the computers,
Yeah.
they were never in class. I can't understand when they actually all day long. It's like, Dad. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be in class? You couldn't get anything done.
Oh,
It was
my
terrible.
goodness.
So I pick them up at 3, and usually there's some after school activity. We take them to Kumon or something. It's a math and reading education course. It's just extraordinary. And then some sort of athletic event if we can. Now they're not in sports. I had them in MMA for a while, and then I had them in gymnastics for a while. They get bored quick. And so now I just take them to places like Uptown Jungle Fun Town and the Sky Zone to
Just
climb
move
rock
around.
walls. Yeah, as long
Yeah.
as they're sweating and running and jumping.
Yeah,
and
let's burn that energy.
I'm happy. And of course, I got to get my workout in sometime during the day. And
So you train while they're at school?
yeah, usually while they're at school, I'll train. And sometimes, see, now I'm traveling. I have a client that I train out of state, and so I'm in Albuquerque every other week.
Yeah.
And so I'm only home for a week at a time, or about 10 days, and then I'm gone for 5. I just fly into Albuquerque Monday morning, get home Friday night, and train during the week. And so I haven't been home as much. But historically, I used to travel quite a bit. I'd leave on Friday, do a seminar on Saturday, come home on Sunday. I've done over 200 seminars.
Like every weekend?
Almost every weekend, yeah. The longer ones out of country, I'll be gone for a week. If I did say Russia or the UK or Switzerland or
Yeah.
those ones, Panama. But mostly it was just a weekend deal. I'd go to Canada or I'd hit one of the States, leave on Friday, come back Sunday. So it kind of depends on, the schedule kind of develops as things get booked. But that's,
How long do you train for?
I try not to train more than an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
How many days a week?
I try and do 5 days a week.
And you just crush it.
And just try and crush it. Yeah. You could train long or you train hard, but you can't do both. And so I try to keep the rest periods a little shorter. I'm not primarily focused on strength now, more bodybuilding. And so I do keep the rest periods shorter and try and do more volume. And, at my age, I don't recover as fast, so I can't really train 2-a-days like I used to, and I don't have the time for it.
Yeah.
And so I'm usually supersetting, say back and chest. I'll do a dip and rest for a minute and do a chin up and try and get a lot of volume in that way in a short period of time.
Are most of your workouts supersets? Like the 5 days?
Yeah.
It's hard to superset legs with something.
That's the only thing that I probably won't superset is legs. That's the one big day a week. I usually train legs twice a week or twice every 8 days. Usually do a 3-on, 1-off, and so that makes kind of an 8-day split. And that's the one big day where I might be there a little longer just because warm-ups, and I like to get the hamstrings in first. And then I just love leg day. To me, it's the foundation of everything else that I do, both metabolically and just in terms of my cardiovascular condition, my physical condition, my body fat. My body composition seems to always look better when I'm doing really hard leg days. It's almost like HIIT training at the same time as hypertrophy training. So I put a lot into that. I think it yields the most benefits, and the rest of it is just kind of maintenance really at this point at my age. And I'm not really trying to do anything special with chest or back.
What time do you usually wind down?
We try and get the kids in bed by 9 o'clock. And so that's that 1 hour after bedtime is usually wind down time that I'm trying to tell myself what I preach to everyone else is to shut the TV off, shut the phone down, get that blue light out of your eyeballs and relax a little bit, maybe do a little bit of reading and just relax. I always take a nighttime 10-minute walk. I'm a huge fan of taking those walks. And sometimes the kids always want to go, by 8:45 or 8:50, like, let's go for a walk.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Awesome.
They just love it. They jump on their little bikes though, and we'll just walk through our neighborhood. Weather's great right now for it, but evening time is usually the best time in Vegas because it's so hot during the day. We'll go do that. But it's a family affair now. The kids like to come out in the garage when I'm training in the garage and show me what they can lift, and because I have a little garage gym, and it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, we have a little garage gym too, and then he wants to train with us, but he'll end up getting the mix, getting his fingers stuck in the cable machine or whatever. So we got this little peg that we stick out to the side.
That sounds crazy and dangerous.
Yeah.
You mean, the little where you put the peg, like the peg for the cable machine, or what are you talking about?
No. So now we got the bar.
Yes.
That we have hanging off to the side. So he has his own little pull-up bar.
Yeah.
So he'll see us work out, and he just jumps and he's just hanging on it like a little monkey.
Yeah.
And he feels like he's working out too, or he'll do little air squats, and he's just training.
That's all kids need, as long as they think it's fun.
Yeah.
That's the foundation of it for them.
And that's what I love about people that train that especially do it in front of their kids or involve kids in it, is that it just becomes second nature to the kids, and they also understand the dangers of the gym space.
Yeah.
They're either gonna learn the hard way, or they just by you telling them hey, you got to watch out, you can't do this, or just watching it, they're just taking it all in.
Yeah, they only have to drop a weight on their foot once, and it'll
and
never
that's it.
happen
That's
again.
all they need.
And they,
Oh my god! I mean, they have 8 toes, but that's all they needed.
It's a learning experience.
So one of the things that you're very known for is hitting 20s on the squat.
Yeah.
That's something that you always push, and I see all the videos, and I'm like, I don't even know if I could hit 20s with 135. What's the philosophy behind that?
Well, when I trained with Flex back in 2009, he had me do higher volume for hypertrophy. And that's kind of the foundation of it, really. He always likened it to, say, sprinters, cyclists, people who sprint, do those cycle sprints, the indoor sprints and stuff, and how big their legs were. A lot of volume with, under tension. And he liked to shorten the rest periods down to 2 minutes. And even in between sets, he'd make me squat down for a significant portion of time and at full stretch, which was just painful as can be. You can imagine at the end of a leg extension set, when you bring your leg all the way down at the very end of the set, how hard it is to sit there. It's just screaming at you.
Just holding it there.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
And so he'll make us do that sometimes after leg press sets.
He's not a very fun guy.
No. And I just found that it seems like the hard shit always works better than the easy shit. And so
It does.
I just,
You're so right.
sometimes I find myself feeling lazy about just throwing heavy weight on and doing a 3 or a 5 rep set. It doesn't take me into deep water. I kind of like what that does to me. The HIIT training, I see kind of metabolic. I'll say this. The next morning when I wake up after doing 20 rep squats on leg day, I just feel like I did something and I look leaner. And I don't have any science to put to that except for that, it's a hell of a lot of hard work, and you do breathe out fat, by the way.
Oh, you do?
Yes, you do.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
That's how fat is, that's how you burn fat. You exhale it. I can't say there's science behind, you can't sit here and hyperventilate and breathe out fat, but it's just one of the things that I've done that just, it feels as though I'm getting a better workout. But more than anything, it's mental, it's cardiovascular wise. I wouldn't recommend it all the time. We see a lot of this stuff if you ever follow like Dr. Peter Attia, who was an endurance athlete for many, many years. He talks about the fact that too much excessive cardio can actually be detrimental to your heart health.
Whoa.
You see marathoners and the like, those who compete frequently, get those enlarged thin walls of their heart, maybe even experience some endothelial damage. Which is kind of a precursor to, atherosclerotic plaques. And so you got to be careful how hard you train. I don't do them all the time. We've had some stories of some...
You don't do the 20s all the time?
Not all the time.
Like
no.
once a month,
I'll
maybe?
do them maybe, if not once a week, every other week.
Okay.
Because I train legs twice a week. So I'll do
I see. So
I'll
one
do kind of
hard one and one just...
a heavier workout and a lighter workout. And the lighter workout would be the 20s. The heavier workout would just be,
Sounds like
85% of your
workouts.
one rep max. Yeah, it does. But if you're doing 20s, you're probably not doing more than 50% of your one rep max.
So if someone were to attempt 20s, because I'm a lazy guy, I think...
Good for you, babe.
Thank you. Like when I trained with Mike, he would tell me, choose something that you can do for, like, let's say 15 reps.
Yeah.
We're going to hit 12. But then I'm going to force reps you up to 20.
Yeah.
And so that's because there's someone pushing me.
Yeah.
For me, if I'm going to hit 20 reps because I don't want to feel like I'm going to die, I'll pick something I could do like 50 reps of and I'll just do 20 of those.
Yeah.
What's the right way to do it? Like what is there a percentage that you're like, okay, generally if you're trying to do these 3 sets of 20, this is your max. You should generally try to choose this percentage.
It should be a hard set of 20, but here's some of the things that to consider. If you do straight reps, never resting, just rep after rep after rep after rep, until within a rep of failure, that is just as effective as if you do rep after rep after rep and then stop. And what we call pause reps is essentially what a 20 becomes. Yeah. At some point.
Yeah, you start taking like 3 seconds.
3-4 breaths. Yeah. It's more of a pause rep. Now, that's not any more effective if you equate for total volume load, sets times reps times weight. Drop sets and giant sets and things like that aren't any more effective than straight sets if equated for volume load, meaning if you just did reps, maybe you could only get 14 reps in a row without pausing and taking 3 breaths. You could stop. It would be just as effective as if you did 20 with the pauses, assuming you did the other 6 in a different set. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sets times reps times weight. So we've done a lot of Brad Schoenfeld, Brett Contreras, and a host of others have done a lot of research on these drop sets and supersets and complexes and stuff like that. And they've just found that it doesn't yield greater hypertrophy results than if you just went to within a rep or 2 or even 3 of failure and then did the rest of the reps on the next set. So it's more of keeping it interesting. It may have a better muscular endurance benefit in terms of the cardiovascular impact. And so to me, it's just a challenge. You can control a lot of different variables on a set of 20. You can, how long does it take you to finish the 20 reps? Some people will try and do the 20 reps in under a minute and then start gradually increasing the weight over time. And if it takes you a minute and a half, then obviously you're doing a lot of pause reps. Heavy breathing, you take 3-4 breaths. But you could do just 14 and your legs would be spaghetti and you couldn't do a 15th, without just completely failing.
And that's just as good.
And that's just as good as if you did with the same exact weight, did 13 reps and then breathed 3 times, did 1 more. Took 3 breaths, did 1 more. Took 3 breaths, did 1 more. Yeah, you did 20 on one set and 14 on the other. But those other 6 reps, if you get those in your next set, would be an equivalent result. That's
How do you like to
we try and
do it?
equate the two.
Do you start pacing? Do you like already? Because I've seen people take a set. I mean, take one rep, breathe 2 times, just starting with rep number 1, and just kind of pace themselves all the way through. Or do you just pump them out, or do you pace?
I try and pump them out, but then at some point it gets to the point where if you don't take 2 breaths, you might pass out on the way down because you didn't get enough oxygen or you didn't exhale enough carbon dioxide. So that's the challenge. Is can you? I always say that air is the fuel. You always hear me yelling, "Big air, big air, big air," because that's what drives each rep. And if you start taking little breaths, you're not exhaling enough and you're not inhaling enough, and you're just not enough oxygen, enough fuel to drive the set. So one of the big problems I had with my trainer with Flex is he would do a lot of high volume stuff with short rest periods, and I would get into deep water and I would be over there sucking wind, and I would be doing these little short breaths. And Flex would come over and he would catch my eyes, because you get in, you're like panic. You're looking around
What's my
the room
name?
like, yeah.
Help
I mean,
me.
if a 12-year-old girl came up and wanted to kick my ass, I'd be like, okay, because you're just spent, and it's such a vulnerable position. And it's kind of like when Connor gave his neck up to Diaz in that first fight that they had. He was spent.
He was done. Yeah.
He's like, I'm just going to dive down here and let him choke me out.
You can see his eyes just give up.
Yeah, that's how you feel. You're completely helpless, deep water. And I'm not saying that's the best way to train. I think that what we understand now from the research is that that you can obtain an equivalent amount of hypertrophy in the 5 rep range using 85% of your 1 rep max, in the 8 to 12 or 14 rep range using 70% of your 1 rep max, as you can in the 20 rep range using 50% of your 1 rep max. They have equivalent outcomes when you equate for volume load, sets times reps times weight. The 5s will make you a little stronger. 20s will give you some more muscular endurance. But both of those end ranges also give you more fatigue. So you have more DOMs and potentially, not able to train with as frequently. And so really the recommendation is you do the bulk of your volume, probably 70% of your volume for a bodybuilder, in that 8 to 15 rep range. And then you throw in a couple of heavy 5s a week and a couple of 20s a week, just to make sure that you're covering all the bases in terms of both slow twitch and fast twitch fibers. And so that's kind of generally the recommendation. So when I say 20s will change your life, it's one part of a much bigger picture in terms of setting up your whole workout program.
Gotcha. Do you apply the same philosophy to deadlift or bench or overhead
I would
press?
never do deadlift for that many reps. It's too much repetitive strain on the lumbar. I'm mostly concerned with fatigue at that point as well, not necessarily injury. But when you hit your CNS, lumbar in particularly, fatigue increases, your CNS overload. Now you can't train as frequently. Plus, in terms of bodybuilding, not a lot of range of motion in a deadlift. And we know that range of motion is, as you, from your experience, of course, with working with Mike Israetel, who's been very outspoken lately about range of motion.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not fun, but you need to take those muscles through a greater range of motion to get maximized hypertrophy, and deadlifting is not that.
Yeah.
It's a strength movement, and so I would prefer to keep deadlifts in. Actually, if you intend to deadlift for competition, then singles, reset another single, unless you're doing speed.
Yeah.
And you can do some speed work under bands or something like that. So there's a whole lot of pieces to this puzzle.
What about bench or overhead press or pull-ups or?
Yeah, you can certainly do 20s there. Yeah, and have less fatigue than you would with legs. Arms, stuff like that. It's pretty easy. You need shorter rest periods, and upper back in particular. You can do a ton of volume for upper back and recover pretty quickly. Yeah, we use upper back kind of as a GPP builder on days that it's not even back day.
Yeah.
Just to get a lot more blood flowing and a lot more movement, a lot more volume in general. And this was kind of the foundation of Westside Barbell's program, which I wasn't familiar with until I started working with Mark Bell in 2009, and have since read a lot more about.
Yeah, GPP is a huge thing for them.
Huge thing for them.
Sled.
People understand that.
Yeah, farmers carries, all kinds of stuff. And also for those that are listening, I know you threw out a bunch of acronyms. DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness. CNS is central nervous system. And then GPP is general physical preparedness, just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the more work you do, the more work you can do.
Yeah.
And I've talked about that in some videos in the past, and that you just have to continue to be able to increase your volume and to be able to recover from that. Then you just have to gradually progress yourself into more workload. I did that somewhat mistakenly so when I look back in retrospect to my career by competing in both bodybuilding and powerlifting. I didn't do them together. I would bodybuild for a
Yeah.
while. I would do lots of sets and reps and volume and create that big GPP base. And when I would transition into powerlifting and I would start decreasing my volume and increasing my weight, increasing my rest periods, decreasing my frequency, I would have a big carryover of my conditioning into my powerlifting. So I would recover very well and get strong very quickly. When I got my pro card, it was in, I want to say it was in August of 2009. I was Flex had dieted me all the way down to, I was 250 on stage. At probably, I was really lean. I was the best shape I've ever been in. I must have been 4% or 5%. I was super, super lean.
Wow.
And I won that show. I immediately went back and started training with Mark Bell in Sacramento. 7 weeks later, I had gained 35 pounds, went from 250 to 285. I lost an inch on my legs because I went from doing all that volume work with Flex, lots of muscle bodybuilding, volumizing sort of work, to doing heavy singles. We were squatting 800 every week for a single.
Oh my goodness.
And that doesn't maintain volume. But in such a short period of time, I struggled squatting 400 for reps when I got done working with Flex. And within 7 weeks, I squatted 850, 821 at that meet. 821.
Wow.
What a
That
badass. You're such a badass. You don't even realize how much of a badass you are, or you're just so used to being a badass that you just glazed over. Yeah, we would squat 800 every week. I'm like, damn.
Klokov talked about this. His dad would make him do a lot of cardio in the off season, and he hated it because he would get weaker.
His dad also made him jump in ice lakes.
Yes, that too. But Dmitry Klokov would talk about then when he got into his prep for, say, the Olympics, he would advance in strength so quickly and recover so quickly he could do a lot more frequency as he built up into these heavier lifts because he had that GPP, that general physical preparedness, that cardiovascular base, and plus he had done so many exercises from so many angles that he had no weak points. He was healthy.
Yeah, he's one of the most aesthetic Olympic weightlifters out there.
A lot of people try and powerlift all year round, and I don't encourage them to do that. Even when I worked with Hafthor and Brian Shaw, I told them to take breaks, and not only breaks from heavy lifting, but breaks from how heavy their body weight remained. I wanted them to cycle their weight as well. When I first started working with Hafthor, we took 40 pounds off of him immediately because he had some fatty liver, some insulin resistance, a little high blood pressure, and he just felt like he was getting fatter, not stronger. That was his words to me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's drop some weight. And that's hard to tell a strong man or a power lifter. Hey, let's drop 40 pounds.
Yeah.
And they're looking at you like you're crazy.
Yeah, I'm gonna get weak.
Yeah. But in preparation for, this is a 1-year plan. This isn't a 3-month plan.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we brought him down and then got him healthier and then brought him back up, maintaining his health with little things like a CPAP to improve his sleep, obviously vitamin D, a little more choline to help with the liver, a smaller calorie surplus, lower fat, which helps prevent fatty liver from accumulating so quickly.
Yeah.
Which would manifest then in the high blood pressure and insulin resistance. And so we kept him, I think, just healthier, and he was able to put on more muscle and more strength with less fat.
I know you also work with professional athletes. Do you have them do the 20s too?
Not
is that
really.
More sports specific
for me,
type
that's
stuff?
kind of bodybuilding stuff. And,
I see.
In terms of sports, I want them to have speed strength, and so I'm working on, explosives, getting them strong, which is not 20s.
Yeah.
And getting them explosive, which is probably also not 20s. So I'm working more on speed strength as a foundation for athletes, just so it's more sport specific.
I see. Recently, so I know, with the vertical diet, why I'm a fan of it is there's a big proponent of red meat, but I think there's this popularity of a lot of people intaking more organ meat.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on organ meat?
It tastes terrible to begin with, so a lot of people are selling organ meat supplements.
Yeah, there's pills and stuff out there.
Beverly International has been selling liver tablets since the 60s, so it's not like it's anything new. The big benefits let's just look at the micronutrient content in particular. It's high in vitamin A, high in iron, higher in folate, liver in particular. Probably one of the richest sources of meat that people are talking about. You can obtain those from other foods if you don't like liver. And I wouldn't consume more than, say, 6 ounces a week, because now you might be concerned about getting too high in vitamin A or too high in iron, which might not be a concern for most women, but for men, they tend to run a little higher in iron. So I'm kind of cautious about how much they consume. I wouldn't use it as a protein source, is what I'm saying.
I see.
People always ask me, can I just use liver instead of, because it's highly available in their area. We work with people all over the world, and some people have livers more readily available and affordable. And I would just suggest that you got to be concerned, although you're less likely to get vitamin A toxicity from eating it in a whole food like liver than you would if you were supplementing it.
I see.
Because there's cofactors along with the whole foods that help mitigate some of that. So I would certainly be a fan if it was a micronutrient that you were deficient in. Folate's a fantastic one also for the liver, for the liver health. Choline and folate together are fantastic for liver health. But you can obtain that in high amounts from, say, beans, any kind of bean. I like lentils in particular because they're low gas. Beans are hard for me to digest. Beans, magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. It's not good. I'm proud of it, but my wife's not.
Would you say you would maybe get the same benefits then, like someone that is a very organ-based diet person versus if you just got red meat and maybe a multivitamin that had some of the same micronutrients? You think that's like
possibly? I'm not a big vitamin guy. The research doesn't support it. If you're eating whole foods, they've had some pretty significant studies, large studies, that unless you're deficient, that vitamins just aren't much benefit.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to replace a good diet.
Yeah.
But if you're having a bad diet, then I guess supplementation does help.
There are things that are hard to get from food. Vitamin D is one. It's not really a vitamin. It's a hormone. And the other one is magnesium. It's kind of hard to get enough of it because a lot of the foods that are high in magnesium also have anti-nutrients that block magnesium absorption.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
that can be kind of difficult. Those are the two I recommend that most people supplement because they're so beneficial and so hard to find in foods.
In whole foods.
Yeah. And I got to say about red meat, because people always start squawking because about people's impression of red meat and how
Like if
it's
it's
been
bad.
maligned by vegetarians in particular, vegans.
I love red meat. I don't care.
And PETA.
And my mom's vegetarian.
Yeah, I just say that we want an assortment. We want obviously enough protein.
Yeah.
You're saying don't exclude red meat because when you eat chicken, red meat's 3 times higher in iron, 6 times higher in B12, 9 times higher in zinc. It's just a superior source. It's a good, better, best scenario. It's not that you eat all red meat either. We have salmon in the diet because you need omega-3s. There's not a lot of omega-3s in red meat. Even pasture-raised and finished red meat is very low in omega-3s. People always talk about it has more than conventionally fed. But salmon has 200 times the amount of omega-3s. You could not get a sufficient amount of omega-3 from red meat, irrespective of whether it's grain finished or grass finished. And yogurt is another huge one for me.
Like
pretty
Greek
easy
yogurt?
pretty easy for most people to digest. Dairy in general has been shown in a lot of major epidemiological studies to be cardioprotective, and people have lower all-cause mortality when they consume more dairy. Great for calcium in particular is what I'm chasing with dairy. And some people can't do milk anymore. I used to be able to do a gallon of milk a day in my 20s. I could never do that now.
Are you tooting again?
Yeah. Back then I probably didn't care, but I could consume a lot more milk back then than I can now, and lactase enzyme obviously is the limiting factor there. But yogurt has a lot lower lactose and has the probiotics and the digestive enzymes to help. And then you get into, like, say, cheddar cheese, which is very low in lactose. But calcium, not just for bone health, but for nerve signaling and for muscle contraction and relaxation. A lot of times people end up with their legs get tired, like heavy legs going up and down the stairs. And that's because they might have a calcium deficiency. And calcium, if you follow muscle physiology, you know that calcium is what's released from the endoplasmic reticulum to trigger the tropomyosin signal that then contracts and relaxes the muscle fibers. And that's the big thing is a lot of people, when they get cramps, they might have the contraction but not the relaxation component.
Oh, I see.
And so you start getting heavy legs, maybe restless leg at night. A lot of that could be calcium. You get a twitch in your eye sometime. Yeah. That can be a calcium deficiency. So we think calcium is pretty important. So you got your red meat, you got your salmon, you got your dairy, you got your eggs, because the yolk is so full of biotin and choline and K2. So I have an assortment of different protein sources, so it's not just
Kind of cover everything.
all red meat. Yeah, but
My
and
protein
then-
source is usually ribeye, sirloin, and New York.
You're
Yep,
the worst.
that's
Is that pretty good?
You're the worst.
Sometimes I'll throw a T-bone in there if, like, if
Yeah.
I'm not covering all the bases.
And people get worried about saturated fat, but if you're eating a gram of protein per pound of body weight and you're trying to keep fats, my macros, my suggestion is about 30% protein, about 30% fat, and about 40% carbs. And if I'm dieting for something, I would probably bring the fats down first. I don't like to get too far under 25%. Now you start getting hormonal issues and you start getting tired and things like that, testosterone. And if you're eating, say, a third of your total calories in fat, and most of those protein sources that have the fats in them, such as steak, are about a third saturated fat. Say top sirloin steak is 5 grams of fat and 1.5 grams of saturated fat. It's less than a third. So if you're just looking at ratios, 30% times 30%, you're down to 9% saturated fat as a percentage of total calories, which is well below what the American Heart Association recommends for saturated fats. If you're concerned about saturated fat, if you have a cholesterol issue, a high LDL, it's usually saturated fat that drives that, not cholesterol consumption itself. Cholesterol has more recently, I think most people recognize that it's been removed from as a nutrient of concern from the dietary recommendations. So cholesterol that you consume doesn't seem to translate into higher cholesterol in the bloodstream.
Yeah.
Your liver manufactures 1,000 milligrams of cholesterol a day. So it'll just increase or decrease its cholesterol consumption based on your consumption.
What you're taking in, yeah.
But saturated fats seem to prevent some of the cholesterol from leaving the system. So, and that could cause a buildup as a result of too much saturated fat in the diet. And it's individualistic as well. Some people don't have that issue.
I see. I'm learning
I'm
so much. I feel like I should be
seriously,
taking notes.
I'm about to sit in the front and just take notes.
That's why we do blood tests. I want to look at my lipids and I
Yeah.
want to say, what kind of interventions can I do?
Wow.
The next question from a fan is, so you've done what you've wanted to do in bodybuilding and powerlifting. You're in your 50s, which many people would say it's past your athletic prime, but you still look like you're in your prime. Like, what keeps you training your ass off still?
I love to train. That's why I started, that's why I fell into it when I was 17 years old in college.
Yeah.
I just love to train. And so I'm real cautious. I say, what's the best exercise? The one you'll do. What's the best diet? The one you'll follow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not prescribing somebody to do an exercise that they're not going to enjoy and not do. I like to encourage them to find some sort of exercise that involves resistance, some sort of mechanical tension.
Yeah.
Because I want them to retain their lean body mass. We know it's an organ of longevity. It's a sink for glucose in the system to help control blood sugars. It's been shown that people who are stronger later into their years have longer lifespans, and so it's protective of times where you're ill or you fall, or we know that slip and fall for elderly people is
That's the worst.
yes,
Osteoporosis for old people too.
100%. And that's the important thing about osteoporosis. It's not a calcium deficiency necessarily.
Yeah.
It's a lack of tension on the muscles. You need that tension. That's why
Oh.
you can feed all the calcium and protein you want to
old
an
lady.
astronaut that's leaving up to the moon, and they'll have bone mineral density loss and muscle loss because of lack of tension. There's no gravity. And so we, try and encourage folks to lift weights, well into their elderly years. And I'll continue to do that. I don't have any, powerlifting goals per se that I'm thinking about, or bodybuilding goals. I just love what I do. And I do it in perfect health now. And that wasn't always the case. When I retired from powerlifting, I kept trying to do some of the things that I did. I'd go in and try and heavy back squat, often.
Yeah.
And I had knee issues and I had hip issues, and pretty severe. I've done some videos talking about chronic tendonitis in my knees for 10 years.
Wow.
I rehabbed that. I'm smarter about my training now, and I do it with you see me walk out and squat 600 pounds with no knee wraps on. I have no pain. I enjoy it.
awesome.
If I had pain, I wouldn't do it. I'd find a different exercise,
Yeah, yeah.
But all the things you see me do in the gym, I do without pain. That doesn't mean that next morning I'm not sore.
Yeah.
But
But that's a good pain.
I've lived that way for 30 years. If I wasn't sore, I felt as though I didn't train hard enough.
Yeah.
So
So now, right? So like when you began, it was because that switch happen or that addiction happen because you're like, whoa, I'm transforming my body, right? But now you've transformed your body. But now, what is it that you're just like that? This is what's keeping me going. Is it the weights going up?
Yeah, conditioning is more important than anything. I just love the feeling. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about it. You know, I come in the morning, I come at night.
Yeah,
you know,
he's
the
coming
pump,
a lot.
The pump. You know, and you know, and then of course I start looking at other role models than powerlifters and bodybuilders. You know, we mentioned Mike O'Hearn. You know, there's somebody who set the bar very high and has maintained extraordinary condition. And so I look at that and I'm like, well, why not me? You know, and I look at even well beyond that. I look at Robbie Robinson, his training partner, who's, what is he, in his 70s now with sickle cell anemia and still looks fantastic and trains every day. And it's not about how big he is or how strong he is. It's his level of conditioning. And, you know, again, muscle being the organ of longevity. When I see Robbie Robinson, I see somebody who I think will not only have a good lifespan, but a good health span, will be capable into his later years. And, you know, the kind of guy who can get his own luggage out of the, you know, out of the overhead compartment in the airplane.
Yeah.
You know, there's just certain things that you'd like to be able to continue to do as you age, rather than being, you know, dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one, clearly this guy is a intellectual. From Mr. Oscar, is eating ass a great source of protein?
Oh my.
I have to say I don't know about that one. I'm proud to say I don't know about that one.
You don't know about that? I mean, there must be some amino acids that you can only get from the anal region.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I
guess stumped me there. You got me there. Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know.
Oh shit.
From Calvin Dow.
You don't even have to say their name.
I know, but I mean, some of these guys, you got to recognize them, Rena. Their intellect. What are your opinions on slow reps versus fast reps?
You know, this has been studied as well. Schoenfeld's got a hypertrophy book out that, I mean, you just follow it. It's the Bible. They've done so much research on this. If the rep is too fast, it's not going to yield a hypertrophy response. You have to be kind of cautious. And they kind of put a range in there. Those 10-second negatives aren't any better than a normal repetition. So just a couple seconds down, a few seconds up. It's really a matter of personal preference at that point. They can't identify any significant benefit, but to say that too fast or too slow, probably not as beneficial as an average range.
Yeah, like an exaggerated extreme.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
That's good to know.
That is good.
I've been fucking up sometimes.
Yeah. What are the best practices to maintain joint health when lifting heavy for the long haul, which I think you'd be the best person to answer this question.
Yeah, well, first of all, I wouldn't lift heavy all the time. You got to make sure, I think you cycle that and use lighter weights. You got to be careful what position that you put, like shoulders, like low bar squats. You got to be cautious how much. That's how I tore my rotator cuff, not benching, but from low bar heavy squats too often.
On your light squat day, are they both low bar, or do you do like a high bar and a low bar? Or
I might not even use a bar. I might use an SSB.
I see.
Bar, or do a leg press, or a hack squat or something. So it's really going to depend. Are you putting your body in a position, whether it's wrists, elbows, or shoulders, under a low bar squat? That's one of the primary drivers of elbow pain and shoulder pain. Not really, not benching necessarily, although that could be a contributor. I would say this, that you have to be cautious about your progression. You don't want to be doing too much load or progressive load too fast or repetitive strain. That gets you, too many repetitions. Like we talked about skull crushers over and over and over again. Tendinitis. It's not a place you want to be. So, nor do you need to, because, lifting weights doesn't need to be an endurance exercise. And it probably isn't optimal for any sport that I can think of in terms of endurance.
Yeah.
You'd want to do your sport for endurance, and you'd want to do the weightlifting to build strength. Beyond that, there's been a lot of research done on passive therapies versus active therapy. I've said in a video of mine, things that are done to you or for you are never as effective as things you do for yourself. And we see that a lot now, where people are getting things like cryotherapy or gua sha or massage. They see mostly a placebo effect from that. You feel better.
Yeah.
But there's no plausible physiological mechanism to suggest that you have improved your recovery. from those interventions, those passive modalities. The research suggests that just simple movement, this is even for lower back pain, simple movement is more effective than an intervention, physical therapy, chiropractic. So move a lot, move often. It's one of the things I like about the 10-minute walks, 3 times a day. When my knees were really bad, one of the things I would do was recumbent bike, and I would do 40 seconds of a decent pace under modest tension with a 20-second rest, and repeat that 10 times. It was a 10-minute knee workout, really. And I would do that 3 times a day, frequency being more important than quantity and duration or intensity. I would do that 3 times a day. I did this way back in 2009 when I was training with Mark. I put one into my little extended stay I was staying at when I was living and training in Sacramento. I wasn't recovering from workouts very well. I was laying around sleeping a lot, and I would just wake up just
Still
crushed.
tired,
Tired, beat. So I started putting the bikes in. I started recovering really fast. Blood flow, blood flow, blood flow. So in terms of if you've had an injury, you need to eliminate the source, which doesn't mean that you can't keep squatting if, let's say, squatting was the issue. You might have to shorten the range of motion and lighten the weight, and then continue to do that. And I say oftentimes that your body, let your body dictate the process, the rate at which you can recover. Then you find a pain-free movement and you move often. And for me, that, whether it's recumbent bike or walking or something, even with shoulder repairs, people get a shoulder surgery if they don't do the proper rehab, which is a lot of movement, they get frozen shoulder.
Yeah.
So it's the inactivity. Greg Nuckols refers to it as kinesiophobia. When you get an injury somewhere, you stop moving.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you put a cast or a brace on your ankle?
It gets small.
It atrophy and the range of motion
Yeah, you lose mobility.
impairs. You
Yeah,
lose
yeah.
mobility. So you get a college football player, a professional football player, and they twist an ankle. The very next day or that same day, they've got them in an underwater tank or in a suspension harness walking on a treadmill, moving the ankle.
Yeah.
My pops had a hip replacement surgery, and the very next morning,
Who's doing
they had him on a
salsa.
walker. And
Oh,
and they were walking him. You have to
Immediately.
move the joints.
Yeah.
For a few reasons, that to get the blood into those cartilaginous structures, there's no innervation, there's no blood vessels going into those joints. It has to go through a pressure gradient, right?
Yeah.
Well, that happens a lot better with movement. The blood can get in there better rather than just passively sitting there. There's very little pressure created. Also, the lymphatic system takes the waste, the debris away, and the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like the heart, and so movement is what helps that. Then all of that swelling and inflammation to start to be taken away and processed.
Yeah, every time I had tendonitis, I like if I get Graston or other like forms of passive treatment, it never feels as good as if I did like a prehab movement, like TKEs with like a band, and you're just doing like 4 sets of 20, 25.
Sit there and hold your knee like this and swing it.
Yeah,
100 times.
and that actually makes it go away.
Yeah.
Which is almost counterintuitive because you think, okay, this hurts from moving, so I don't want to move, and then you go get a treatment, and like you're getting massaged or whatever, but then actually being able to move it a little bit more with a much lighter load helped it.
Yeah, and there's no evidence that stretching helps with injury recovery.
Yeah.
There's no evidence that stretching helps with injury prevention pre-workout. There's no evidence that it helps with post-workout reduction of DOMs. There's just not. A lot of folks get upset when we have this conversation because they say, well, I did this and it worked. Well, here's what you have to know about pain management. And a lot of this stuff comes from Barbell Medicine's work. They do a great job of this. And from Larimar Mosley's work out of Australia, Explain Pain is a book that they wrote that's fantastic. And that's that I think upwards of 95% of pain resolves itself within 4 to 6 weeks spontaneously, irrespective of the intervention. And so if someone says, oh, I went to so-and-so and now I feel great. It's like, well, spontaneous recovery is a thing. You could have put a a copper bracelet on your wrist and done nothing else, and you would have attributed the recovery to the copper bracelet because that's what you did. Whether you went to a PT or a chiropractor or did gua sha or did ice bath or did, you name it. You name the modality where you just sat there and did nothing. And you will probably have a relief of your pain within 4 to 6 weeks spontaneously. That's why I wish I'd been in that business and not the weight loss business, where we have a 95% failure rate.
Yeah.
Recidivism is, within 3 years is way into the 90%. So I have a hard time having these conversations because people get all upset. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. I just stretched the hell out of it and it fixed itself. And it's like, well,
either that or the doctor that they go to is like, hey, you're injured, stay off of it.
Yeah, another bad idea.
Yeah. But I mean, that's still being told. And like I said, like by doctors that people trust, and they're like, okay, well, my doctor said you're not a doctor. Yeah. So I'm glad you're saying this.
So here's someone that's very, very naughty.
Uh-oh. Another one?
They said, is Stan ticklish?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
My pops used to always. I do the same thing to my son. I'm always poking him, just hearing him laugh, just lights up your day. But
it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, same thing my pops used to do to me all the time. He's always counting my ribs every morning. That's how I wake my kids up. The first video that's on my phone right now is that Good Morning song, that wake up song. I go and I play it for my kids and I start counting ribs. Yeah.
How cute.
I love tickling
their feet. Yeah.
Yeah, I love tickling my son.
Well, I hope they got their answer there.
What were your parents like? Were they fitness oriented? Were they naturally built? Were they super strict on you?
No, my pops was a little guy. He played tennis in college. He was 155 pounds. He's 5'10", 5'11".
Was he very disciplined though? Did he follow some sort of regimen, like physical regimen?
Pops is he's an intellectual. He's a Mensa. He was an engineer.
Oh, wow.
He ran the.
That means he's like a certified genius, right?
Yeah, he ran the Dittmer Control Center, which was the nuclear power plant for Bonneville Power up in Washington. My sister was the same, valedictorian of her college, head of the critical care ward at Johns Hopkins. Wow. Somehow it missed a kid.
It did not.
No, I
not
think
from here.
really
It didn't.
smart.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Those guys, like my pops is 91 years old now, and I'll go in his room when he's watching Jeopardy now, and he can't even see. He's got macular degeneration, so I got him this giant, like 80-inch screen in this huge chair that's like 2 feet away from him, and he's like this, watching the TV. He'll answer all the questions on Jeopardy.
He's probably cheating, watching reruns.
Yeah. I got to leave him like I'm out of here, Pops. So, yeah. What was the question? See?
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. Like, what was...
Yeah, and were they strict on you?
Yeah. I don't know. My pops, I earned every whooping I got, and he missed a lot. There were a whole lot I got away with too, but they were attentive. Both of them were attentive parents. I had a stay-at-home mom, so she was always around. Kids
it's hard
to
get away with stuff
at our house. Yeah,
I'm gonna tell your dad when he gets home.
If anything, the discipline just comes from my personality. I'm really type A. I'm just like my daughter's that way. I went into a parent-teacher conference last week, and he said, I looked over it one day at your daughter. She's in GATE. She's a grade ahead in math and reading and stuff, and she's doing fantastic. And he's like, I saw she was crying, and he goes, immediately I was like looking around, and I thought somebody did something to her. And, he was like, getting all upset, and it's just she didn't understand the problem. And if she loses at anything, she gets So I was like that. I was like that. When I was wrestling in high school, if I would lose a match, I'd be out in the hallway crying. I'd be just pissed. You're just angry. Yeah. How did I lose?
Like failing yourself.
Yeah. So I guess bodybuilding was a good sport for me, being OCD, because it's so regimented and so disciplined and consistent and everything.
Yeah.
All your days accounted for, and you just dump everything into it. Yeah. So it's probably a good choice.
It's a good answer. What misconceptions in health and fitness would you do away with if you could?
I think the big one we talked about is people think that they need to over-restrict their foods. It's a calorie equation.
Yeah.
First and foremost. And the adjustments that you make are really for satiety and energy. But beyond that, whether you're high carb or low carb, all the research shows that when you equate for calories and protein, where you put your carbs and fats don't matter. You don't need to intermittent fast. 78% of successful dieters from the weight control registry eat breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, those are the people who have kept over 60 pounds off for over 6 years. That's the largest study performed of over 10,000 successful dieters. 78% of them eat breakfast. So you don't need intermittent fast. You can if you enjoy that and it works for you. You don't need to go keto. Carbs don't make you fat. So I think that would be one big myth. And it really, the purpose of that is not to nocebo people into thinking that only one particular pathway is viable. Because if it doesn't work for them, if they don't enjoy that and they can't adhere to it, then they just give up because they think, well, that's the only way you can lose weight is if I skip a meal or if I, get rid of carbs. That's not the case. So I think you do people a disservice by not giving them more options that might better suit their lifestyle and personal preference. I think that's a big thing. And then the big one is the over-exercising. Telling people they have to go crush themselves and run a half marathon or do 40 minutes on the treadmill every day. More exercise does not equal more weight loss. It's not a good measurement. We tend to overestimate our exercise calories burned anyhow. And so I think you do them a disservice because if you create a training regimen that's too hard or unenjoyable or too tiresome, then they suffer from what's called compensation. Like you go do a CrossFit class and you come home and you sit more and eat more because you're just beat. That's hard work.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And it should be enjoyable. The best diet, the best exercise is the one you'll do. It should be enjoyable and sustainable for you. I love lifting weights. I can't encourage everyone to lift weights if they don't enjoy it. I would encourage them to do something that they love, that they loved, and potentially created a little bit of mechanical tension, some sort of resistance, within, the sport that they enjoy or the activity they enjoy, because that's so good for stimulating muscle. So those would probably be the two big myths that are out there now that everybody seems to be battling.
Gotcha. So this is the last question, and it's a juicy one.
Yeah.
So to get to the top tier levels of bodybuilding, you have to cross over from the natural realm to enhanced. What's like the most proper way to get into that? Like the healthiest way, like having longevity and all of that.
Well, first and foremost, I'd suggest you compete in natural federations. I would never encourage anybody to take testosterone unless they were hypogonadal. Because there's plenty of natural federations, both in powerlifting and in bodybuilding, that you can compete in.
Yeah.
I think most notably is like Lane Norton,
Yeah.
who's done both.
Yeah,
Being a professional bodybuilder and a world record powerlifter. Best of my recollection, I think he set some records in powerlifting as well. Who's also extraordinarily smart and has built a great career in the industry without the need of steroids. At the time I was coming up, there was nothing other than bodybuilding. There wasn't physique, figure. Now you can have smaller guys.
Yeah.
Both in terms of weight and height, and so the divisions are, there's lots of divisions.
You can wear board shorts now.
Yeah, you can wear board shorts. I would also say that in many cases, it's a life sentence. You cannot start and use performance-enhancing drugs for an extended period of time and expect to retain those gains and possibly to even retain your own physiological production of testosterone to the level that it once was. It may permanently be reduced. Not
even if you cycle off the right way or right way.
Boy, that's a shotgun.
Oh, really?
I'm telling you, it's really individualistic as to how you respond. You get to using performance-enhancing drugs for more than, say, a couple of years. The likelihood that you'll regain your original testosterone levels is pretty slim. And I don't know that there is a right way. I know they talk about post-cycle therapy with HCG and Clomid and those kinds of things.
Is it because your body goes, we don't need it anymore?
100%.
Let's just stop.
It's the feedback loop. Yeah. Hypothalamus talks to pituitary, talks to testes, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. All of that is a feedback loop. You shut that down long enough, and it's, I'm not really needed. So that's a concern. And even if your testosterone levels do come back, you will lose a significant amount of the gains that you made. And psychologically, they can have a bigger impact than physiologically on how you perceive yourself. If you've identified yourself as that guy, and suddenly you're not as strong, you're not as big, you're not as defined, which might be unachievable, Most natural bodybuilders, are, what are they, 165, 175, unless they're taller, they might get up to 195 pounds. You don't see them at 230, 240, 250. You just don't. When I was coming up in bodybuilding, that's all there was in the heavyweight class was 250-pound guys. For a 6-footer, that's what you needed to be.
Yeah,
be a pro
250
bodybuilder.
lean.
Yeah, 250 lean. So it was an all or nothing for me. Those are decisions that I made. But if you do, I would say this. I would say use the least amount possible to affect a result. You don't want to go 0 to 100. You want to go 0 to 1, and then 1 to 2. And you want to be very careful to manage everything that I talk about in my vertical diet book to mitigate damage. Look, your liver health, your kidney health, your blood tests, your sleep, obviously. And some of that has to do with the type of drugs that you use. Injectables obviously don't have the two-pass system through the liver, so the orals would be something you'd want to avoid as much as possible, or maybe just take them.
It could trash your liver?
It can trash your liver, yeah. And your blood tests, you have to identify that. They also will crash your HDLs, so your lipids start to get affected. And generally can raise your blood pressure. Also, microdosing has become very popular. Something that we've known about for a decade or two. Meaning you don't take huge doses once a week. You start taking smaller doses more frequently, and that keeps you from having the peaks and valleys that cause a lot of these other reactions in the body. So there's a host of things that you can do to try and minimize the damage. I think how much you use is obviously a large component of that. You don't need a ton to get significant gains if you're consistent over the long term. Your body doesn't build muscle like that. It doesn't build muscle fast.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. And so it'd be the same thing if you said, if you're currently eating 3,000 calories and you woke up tomorrow and said, I'm going to eat 6,000, you're just going to get fat.
Yeah.
So body doesn't build muscle that fast. It needs a consistent stimulus is the main thing. So the same thing would be true with performance-enhancing drugs. Your body just doesn't have the ability to produce muscle at that rate. A lot of it would be water retention. And there's a host of other side effects that people usually confuse side effects with effects. And they start to think, oh, this is really working. And really what they've happened is they got a ton of acne, a ton of water retention as side effects that provided them no additional hypertrophy
strength
benefit.
and muscle gains.
Yeah. So
What's so like it sounds like you're more like not for it. Like try to do as much as you can naturally first. Is there a scenario where you think it lends itself to be for people to be more inclined to cross over?
That's where you get into the catch-22 where you're not going to achieve a particular level into a sport that you want to get to
I see, yeah.
without them.
Yeah.
But if you take them, then you might also have a compromise of health or, be popped by, a testing organization if one exists in the sport that you're in.
Yeah.
That gets to the point where, people are getting potentially paid millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's a harder decision to make.
So it's kind of like a cost-benefit analysis depending on. And then you have to be aware and okay with the decisions that you make.
100%. Yeah. That having been said, if you are careful, the HRT is very different than performance-enhancing drugs. Performance-enhancing drugs would be super physiological doses of multiple compounds. HRT, for those people who are hypogonadal, I deal with a lot of clients in their 40s and 50s who are hypogonadal, have testosterone, under 200 that, have a host of the associated symptoms, depression, muscle loss, ED, those kinds of things. I would highly recommend you go in, get a blood test, and start working with a good practitioner. I'm just cautious because a lot of those folks prescribe things that are unnecessary in many cases, and anti-estrogens can be a big problem. HCG, when it's kind of hit or miss as to who it works for, I would just start with one thing and use it long enough with proper monitoring to see if you're getting the benefits that you desire. It's not just a number. There's a range on the blood test, but it's not just the number. It has to be associated with side effects. Or I wouldn't say side effects. I would say it would be associated with problems like ED, or if you have a loss of energy, how's your sleep? How's your nutrition? There's a lot of times where I'll get somebody that's low T who also is 40 pounds overweight and isn't exercising and on a shitty diet. And in that case, maybe the intervention, maybe the lifestyle intervention could help the problem. If they would just lose a little bit of the weight, improve their sleep, eat a better diet, do some, exercise consistently and in moderation, maybe all of a sudden their testosterone levels will normalize. And so it kind of depends. Same thing's true with some women who have hypothyroid circumstances. It could be lack of sleep, over exercise in some of those cases, and maybe nutrition, maybe inadequate iodine intake. Those are certainly things you should pursue first. And if you get some results from that, then maybe you don't need the medications. Because once you take the medication, it's not that the testosterone therapy is bad or thyroid medication is bad necessarily, but it's just one more thing that you got to pay for and continue to take. And and in the absence of it, because it does shut down your own system, you're right back kind of where you started.
I see.
Yeah, I love that answer.
Thank you so much for all these in-depth answers to some hard questions, some personal questions, some funny questions. And once again, thank you so much.
Some inappropriate questions.
I know, guys. Just kidding.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on our show. I always feel like I learn so much. And if they want to find you and get your book or get your meal prep, where can they find you?
Yeah, everything's at Stan Efferding, stanefferding.com. My Vertical Diet ebook is on there. My meal prep company, there's a link there to get you over to the Vertical Diet and order meals delivered nationwide to your door. YouTube, Stan Efferding. There's a lot of videos on there I put a lot of time and energy into that are fun, that cover a lot of the information that we talked about today. And then Instagram also at Stan Efferding.
That's awesome.
And I saw that your book is on Amazon as well. And I also see that it sells out quickly.
Yeah, it was the
Which
number
is awesome.
one new release on Amazon.
That's
for the
amazing.
4 weeks that it was in the category, and now we're up to number 36 in diet books, and so we're climbing. We're happy.
Congrats.
It's just released, so it's good. I have the ebook as well. The ebook's a little more comprehensive. I update it periodically, and it's got some more training information, the blood testing information, there's just water cut information for athletes. So a lot of people who read the ebook wanted a hard copy, so we produced a hard copy. But the hard copy is a little more mainstream, so it's mostly diet advice and general health advice, but they're both available.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.